Welcome back, everybody. It has been a little while. I just got home last night from my Japan-Korea work trip. Had a great time. It was a lot of fun. Unfortunately, work is going to be very busy for the next couple of months, honestly. So I'm going to do what I can to get videos in and get progress made on the airplane. You're going to have to be patient with me as I work through all of this. Right now it is Sunday. What is it? Sunday, August 10th. Like 4 o'clock in the morning, so my schedule's all screwed up still. Like I said, I just got home yesterday. Got some cool swag while I was in Korea. The guys out there hooked me up with some stickers and stuff. I love stickers. What else? Only got a couple of days. We're going to start working on joining the RV-8 forward and mid fuselage sub-assemblies. I actually kind of started this before I left, and all that really involved was taking the forward side skins and prepping them, just getting them ready and deburring some edges. And now the arduous task of trying to get them clecoed onto the airframe. And once they're all on, then we're going to start doing some final drilling, I think. I did go ahead many steps and verified that a lot of this stuff is temporary installed with clecos right now. Like, you're going to do the majority of the entire fuselage assembly, final drill it, then you get to take it apart and deburr, prime, all that good stuff. So there's a lot of work, and there's going to be a whole lot of rework. It's not like when you do a smaller sub-assembly and then you get to take it apart and put it together. There's a lot in this one, so there's going to be a lot of that for a little while. Also got home to a package from the yard store. I got 100 more copper clecos. Hopefully that's enough to get me through the rest of this, because like I said, there's a lot more still to come. But yeah, that's about it. Haven't received my tail wheel yet. I know they're still backed up from Oshkosh. Not like I'm in a huge rush for that or anything, but again, when I do get it, I'll unbox it for you all so you can see what all I got from them. Anyhow, upcoming for me, like I mentioned, it's Sunday. Tuesday morning I gotta leave, go to Little Rock for a couple of days for some repairs, and then I'll be home for a day, and then I'm going to spend next weekend in Nebraska camping with the family, and then after that I'm going to spend the next few weeks in Rapid City, South Dakota. Got a fairly big job to do out there, so that'll be a good time. If any of you are all out there, hit me up. I'd love to see what you're building. If anybody knows any place I can go fly while I'm out there, even better. It's been a while since I've flown. It'd be nice to go fly something. So yeah, you know the routine. Voiceover Tim will get you caught up on what does or does not happen in the next day and a half-ish of me being able to work on this thing. And I will see you all later. Alright, welcome to voiceover part. This escalated quickly, as I'm sure you've probably gathered from the thumbnail that's probably going to be up that you clicked on for this video. So that being said, let's get this out of the way early. If you noticed, this is a much longer video than normal, and that's just because I don't have enough time to split this into 2 videos. I got a little carried away. Yes, the tail cone is, well, fabricated and fitted. It still has to all come back apart after a bunch of other stuff, but I will probably try and add some chapter markers to this one because it's so long, just so you can jump around if you'd like to. If you can, let it play in the background. Helps the algorithm if you watch the whole thing. Anyhow, I hope you enjoy it. Leave your comments and questions below, and I'm sure I'll say that all again at the end, but here we go. This started out with me just getting those midsection skins on, or the forward side skins. Fairly easy. I had already prepped the skins before I left. All I had to do was get them hung, so not too bad getting them hung on there. As I had mentioned, I think in the previous video, they tell you when you're putting all of these clecos in to hold the substructure together, to do it from the inside out so that you can attach the skins later. Honestly, I think that's kind of more of a pain than anything. If they were on the outside, then you could just take them off and pin the skin as you go. Either way, results are the same. Biggest thing you're going to see throughout this, and I'm going to harp on it a lot, is there is a very specific pattern that the skins have to overlap each other, and you want to make sure that you are constantly referencing the plans and sticking to that. It could be very easily to get that backwards, which at this stage probably not the end of the world because we're just getting everything clecoed on so we can final drill.
but obviously once it goes back together again, it's going to be permanent. So don't want to be messing that up. Another thing, and this is quite literally going to bite me later on, some of these sections are really, really hard to pin because there's so many different layers of things that have to line up. So you'll see me fidgeting with pieces to try and get hole alignment. There will be blood later. Don't worry, no blood on camera. You just get to see a makeshift bandage. Right about here, I think, is where I broke my bandsaw blade, and I was already on my backup blade and hadn't ordered more, so I think I made it through these parts, and then it broke at the very end, and I had to use the cutoff wheel. So you'll see me doing some different stuff for cutting until I finally get some more blades, which I finally do have in, but it didn't help me with any of this. So that was the finish of the forward side skins. All these parts now are officially onto the tail cone section. The pieces you see me working on now are the very back bulkheads that the tail spring is going to mount to. So you get these things together, do all the final drilling, and then you got to get the hand seamer out because the tail cone is by title a cone. You don't want those flanges completely parallel to each other. They need to make an angle. So you take the forward one and you bend it out so that it matches the taper of the aft bulkhead. And you're going to end up doing that on a couple of these that are stacked like this. Fairly easy, just makes everything go together a lot easier. Now I am working on finding the center line, and then there's some very specific marks I have to make on these to get the tail spring lined up. There are no holes in the tail spring. Not right now anyways. The first thing you got to do is get this thing lined up exactly where it goes, and then there's 2 reference holes that are going to be number 30 size that you're going to drill, which will help you locate it later. And then at some point that I haven't got to in the plans yet, it's also going to have you drill holes for some bolts that will bolt that to those bulkheads. For now, it's just the locating ones. Also, I didn't read far enough ahead while I was doing these little bulkheads. I was just doing a step at a time, and I think I made it through 2 sets before I realized that it's having me do the same thing over and over again. You're building a bulkhead section, final drilling it, deburring, dimpling if need be, all that good stuff. Then it tells you to scuff, prime if desired, blah blah blah, and then you do the next one and it does the same thing. So I went through a couple of these before I realized I should probably just go ahead and do all of them and paint them all at once or prime them all at once, whatever I was going to do. So there's a little bit of back and forth in the beginning until I figured out how to make things a little more efficient. I'm also going to spare you a whole lot of the cleaning and prepping. You've seen me do a bunch of that before. I use that DA sander with the Scotch-Brite scrubber type pads on it. Does a really good job of scuffing up the aluminum, along with all the normal stuff, edge prep and deburring holes. And okay, on to the next bulkhead. This one you see has that little slot in there. That's actually a guide because you have to cut out a section of these. So you're going to use that as a reference, transfer some lines on there, and then just make some nice straight cuts, which again, my bandsaw was down, so I had to use the cutoff wheel to make these. Actually, I think I tried a couple different things. First I tried the tin snips and realized, yeah, that's not going to give me the nice clean cut I want. So onto the cutoff wheel, which worked just fine. Using the little mini Scotch-Brite wheel, or 3M wheel, and cleaning things up. Also, I'm going to Cleco them together here, since those openings pretty much match up, and give it one more pass over as they're Clecoed together. This bulkhead is where the vertical risers, and you see me pinning them on now, are going to get mounted, that the horizontal stab gets mounted to later. They have no holes. There's, I think, one or two guide holes for you to pin this thing in place, but the rest of the holes need to be match drilled. So I start that by hand, and then I realize, you know, probably need to move this to the drill press so I can make sure that I'm getting nice straight holes through those bars, because they're thick enough that if you're not perfectly straight, it's going to make a difference with how the rivets go in later. anyhow, got those drilled, got out the reamer and just reamed them out to make sure they were perfectly clean. And then there's a crossbar, I think, that goes on top that came from that big piece I had to cut up. Alright, yeah, the first bulkhead is dry from priming. And the aftmost bulkhead, I just primed it, and then the very aft part that may be partially visible, I sprayed it with some of that dark machine gray Rust-Oleum. I figure it's going to be obscure enough that the gray will match whatever's on the plane, or at least look good without it just being green primer. Or I can just go over it later on when I'm painting the plane. But for now, that's the way that looks. The next few bulkheads will just be primer, and then when we get to the parts that'll be seen from the cabin area, like what's going to be in the baggage compartment, those ended up getting treated with that titanium Cerakote that I'm doing all the interior pieces with. So there's the logic and reasoning behind all of that. Most of this I could reach with the squeezer. You saw I had to get the rivet gun out. Those two middle ones there necessitated a little bit of rivet gun work. Not too bad. I think right about here is where I realized I can just go ahead and prep all the rest of these parts at once and then paint them at once. So you start at the tail, you move your way forward. This is the next bulkhead in line. I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head what they are, but fairly easy and self-explanatory. The hardest part, I think, was just finding all the parts. And you just Cleco them together, match drill the holes, and then get the parts cleaned up and ready for priming and or painting. And all this is coming back off again after all the final drilling stuff is done. Just sitting there admiring my handiwork. It's always nice to see what looks like actual airplane parts come together. I think these are the first ones of the bulkheads that are getting into the baggage area now, so ultimately these ones and the ones going forward are going to end up getting Cerakoted, if my logic holds true. Okay, these ones took me a while to find. I couldn't figure out where they were, and I forgot that I had already installed them. These were the aft midsection ones. So this will be the front of the tail cone and the aft of the midsection. So I had to pull them out of the fuselage. And then there's these little tabs you gotta trim and cut off. You leave them in previously just because this thing gets kind of flimsy once you cut them out. But that's to make room for the various longerons that have to pass through it. I left a little bit of this in so you can see, yep, still using the Scotch-Brite wheel. Scuffing everything up. Works really well. Somebody had asked me about it. I think I included a link in my test panel prep video. This was just a cheap DA sander and pads off of Amazon. This part goes above those lower bulkheads you just saw me working on, and this is the openings for the rear seatbelt fair leads. If you've seen an RV-8, this is a very prominent, noticeable part, and just below that is where the baggage compartment is at. I couldn't find the doubler for one side. Took me forever to find the thing. I was worried I was going to have to order it or make a new one. In fact, I think I did order one while I was ordering some other parts from Vans the other day, but I guess I'll have a spare. Oddly, some of the stuff, as far as I can tell, that they had me prep right now, you prep them, but you really didn't need to because all of this is coming back apart. So, and it's not, some of the stuff's not going in. Like you can see in the foreground there, the bars that are going to mount the stab later on and the vertical stab. But they never get reinstalled, and as far as I can tell, they're not getting installed until after all of this other work is done. But I guess it's good that they're done and sitting there ready. Bad part is I just have to keep track of them and make sure I know where they're at and which one goes on which side and which way it's facing, since they were match drilled for the side they go on. Anyhow, on to final assembly for some of these bulkheads. You can see they've been primed and or Cerakoted, and now I am riveting them together so they can stay as one piece. Yeah, this section is, I think, the first one that got Cerakoted. You can see it's that lighter titanium grayish color. So far, I really like the way it's coming out. We'll see once it's all actually together. That part's all Cerakoted, so now it has me rivet the fair leads on, which is good. I like it when I can rivet the small pieces onto the bigger pieces. It means I don't lose them, or less likely to lose them, I suppose. And if you're seeing me fidget with it, just these painted pieces, just to make sure I'm not marring it up, I am putting a piece of that wall-safe Scotch tape over the rivets before I squeeze them, just to make sure. And it seems to be working out. They're coming out really nice and clean. Here's that lower section that I cut those notches out of. And now on to a little bit more new work. These are rib sections that are going to go under the aft mid fuselage section and attached to the floor. They also have a mounting point for, I think it's bell crank support. But they've got some angles that go on them. Those just need to get final drilled. Nothing about priming or any of this stuff right now, so I didn't bother actually doing it. I'm sure I probably could have, but there's so much that has to come apart. Okay, on to the remaining longerons. There's these guys, which are going to get attached to the side skins here in a minute, and they kind of have a decent little bow in them. I'm not sure if that was intentional or not, but they bend exactly the way they're supposed to once you get them on the side skin, so I'm assuming it was meant to be that way. Anyhow, you've got two long ones and two short ones, and one set of each goes on each side of the skins and makes the skins manageable to work with. They are way too floppy until you put those on. Once they're on there, the skins are rigid enough that once you start clecoing on the forward edge of them, they'll hold themselves up under their own weight. Although off camera, I have another one of those sawhorses set up that just barely is underneath them to help kind of support them when I go to put them on here in a second. You can see I've slid the fuselage, the main part of the fuselage, further down in the shop to make some room for these, because this thing's about to be full length, and I think it's a little over 15 feet from the firewall to the very back of the tailcone section. Alright, have to get that rib back in. And it's a little fiddly because there's overlap parts there, plus that curve, and it makes it a little challenging. And remember, none of this has been final drilled yet, so these skins don't completely go on as nicely as they will once everything's final drilled. Alright, so next up are those ribs you saw me prepping. Now you get an idea where they go. They don't really do anything for you now, but they're going to add a little more support for the belly skin section here in a little bit when it goes on. For now, they're just kind of there, and I have to remember they're there and not walk into them before I get these side skins on, so I don't bend anything. And periodically, as you see me adding more stuff to the tail end of this, I'm putting stuff up on the baggage shelf in the front to kind of help balance this thing out, because it did get a little tippy towards the end when it started getting heavy. So just like I mentioned earlier, skin overlap, which one goes where, is important. Think about the airflow of the plane. That kind of helps figure out which skin has to overlap which. So those forward skins overlap the aft skins, and skins that are above lower skins overlap the lower skins. It's kind of easy to remember if you think about it that way. Just think about airflow and like water, and you don't want it to be able to get in between edges. So now it's start adding those bulkheads that I fabricated, and I'm going to be off camera here in a second because I don't realize that I don't have this whole thing in shot. So I'll end up cutting this and moving it so you can actually see what's going on. This thing got real long real quick. There we go. Now you can see more of it, but you still can't see all of it. On the bench, I'm adding those two rear bulkheads to the rear belly skin, and it's a fairly thick skin, and it's got to be bent and curved a little more than what it already is to squeeze up against those bulkheads. So it was a lot of work fiddling them back and forth. But then they go in as a unit with the belly skin right there, and you get that whole section clecoed into place. And there's a lot of holes on some of those flanges that are not drilled yet. You're going to use the skin as a drill guide, so you cleco what you can, and I guess ideally once everything's in place it'll all be lined up so you can drill it all. Okay, the belly skin. I cut out a lot of fiddling with that. A second set of hands would really be nice here, or being able to roll the fuselage over onto its side, but with all those clecos in, it's not really a possibility right now. So as far as I could tell, there's no good way to do this aside from just getting on your back and working on it. Thankfully it's low enough to the ground that it's not too bad to do. And then you see I'm just using that stool to kind of help support the loose end, so all that weight's not just hanging off those forward clecos right away. The book does, or the plans do tell you, you know, cleco this and then go aft and cleco that, so it helps hold it up. But I found it was a lot easier to just start at the front end and work my way back, because you have to tuck the forward edge of that up under the other belly skin, and then the sides of it have to go up and under both side panels. And it's just easier to work your way from the front to the back doing that. Hope that makes sense. And even though by the end of this you're going to see I have it all clecoed together, it's not totally done. I need to go probably add a couple hundred more clecos to make sure this thing is 100% locked in place before I start drilling anything, especially the longerons, which you're going to see me install here in just a few minutes as well. So I still have that to do. I'll probably get that done before I go on this trip. I will not get started on the drilling. There are, I think, 4 or 5 pages of just steps for final drilling everything now. So yeah, that's going to take a while. Anyhow, here's those really long upper longerons that you saw me bend a couple of videos ago. And blown away at how easily they went into place and how perfectly the bends all lined up with what they needed to. I really thought I was going to have to tweak these or adjust them, but they worked out perfectly. You can see the little tiny bit that's sticking out at the end. That's because these are longer than they need to be, so I'm assuming at some point those will get trimmed back there. There is an adjustment you have to make, which you'll see on camera here in a second. Let me drop this other one in. like a glove. So those longerons have absolutely no holes in them right now. There are hundreds of holes that have to get drilled into that thing, but of course you want to make sure it is deadlocked into place where you want it to be, because there's no going back and fixing that. Oh yeah, I promised you blood. Yeah, there's the makeshift shop towel and electrical tape for a bandage. As I mentioned earlier, some of these Clecos have to go through multiple layers of skin, gussets, and other parts, and I had one that was stuck, and I was putting pressure on it to get it to go through because it had started, and then all of a sudden it went from being stuck to easy really quick, and my finger was on the other side, and I stuck a Cleco right into my finger fairly deeply. Yeah, it hurt. It bled a little. But that's what electrical tape's for. Okay, so the last parts of this before I can adjust the longerons is these caps that go on these midsection bulkheads here, and then the top cap, which is going to be the top rail that covers the longeron around the cockpit area. And you have to get these on mainly because there's a little notch in that top cap that I can't remember which bend it is. One of the bends in the longeron has to line up in the middle of that notch. And thankfully, I didn't wipe off any of my marks, so I have a nice clean straight mark where that bend is at, which makes a good line for lining this up. So if you haven't bent your longerons yet and you've got them all marked, or you're getting ready to mark them to do all of this, make sure you leave them marked, because those marks will come in handy again later. If not, you just gotta kind of eyeball where that bend is at. So you're gonna see me adjust this here in a minute, and then there it is. There's the notch, there's the line. I'm gonna slow it down a little bit so you can see it. I'm just tapping on the rear of the longeron with a rubber mallet to adjust it, and that's where that one needs to be. Here's a picture showing you it in the marks, or showing the mark in the middle of the notch. Just got to do it on the other side, and that's it. So here's some parting photos of the process along the way. I hope you enjoyed it. I know it was a much longer one than normal. I got to leave town for a few weeks, so there won't be any videos for a little while. Maybe I'll post some flying stuff if I get to go flying while I'm gone up in Rapid City. But yeah, hope you all enjoyed it. Leave your comments and questions below. Here in a second, I think you'll see some of that ballast I had to shove up front to keep this thing balanced. But yeah, thanks for sticking it out to the end, and I will see you all in the next one.